You picture a neighborhood coffee shop as a machine that turns cheap beans into $5 drinks. The room smells expensive. Customers arrive every morning, and a latte that costs barely $1 to make sells for several times that amount. It looks like one of the cleanest margins in retail. Then you sign the lease. The coffee is profitable. The coffee shop is not automatically profitable. You are really buying a fixed location, staffing it before sunrise, and betting that hundreds of people will repeatedly choose your exact doorway over every competitor, office machine, drive-through, and kitchen counter nearby. A local coffee shop takes roasted beans, milk, food, labor, equipment, and rented space, then packages them into speed, consistency, convenience, and atmosphere. The drink matters, but it is not the whole product. Customers pay because you save them time, give them a reliable ritual, or provide a place to meet, work, and sit without committing to a full restaurant meal. That changes how you should think about the business. You are not mainly selling coffee beans with water. You are selling access to a small piece of real estate delivered one cup at a time. Demand is real. In 2025, 46% of American adults reported drinking specialty coffee on the previous day. The branded U.S. coffee shop market had grown to roughly $58.5 billion and more than 45,000 outlets. That's attractive, but it also means the obvious locations already have competitors. Your first major decision is not the roast profile, it is where the front door goes. There's also no reliable national coffee shop dataset supporting the claim that 80 or 90% fail in their first year. Broader federal business data suggests roughly half of new establishments survive 5 years. A bare-bones cart can open relatively cheaply. A real neighborhood café with seating, plumbing, bathrooms, refrigeration, food storage, ventilation, and enough electrical capacity for commercial equipment is different. A defensible U.S. budget is roughly $120,000 to $350,000, and a premium city build can exceed that. The espresso machine alone may cost $10,000 to more than $20,000. Add 2 grinders, batch brewers, water filtration, ice production, refrigeration, sinks, dishwashing, point-of-sale hardware, furniture, smallwares, and backup equipment. Equipment can easily absorb $30,000 to $70,000. The larger bill is often the room itself. A former cafe with usable plumbing might need $50,000 of renovation. A raw retail shell can consume well over $100,000 before the first chair is installed. Contractors discover electrical problems. The city requests another sink. The landlord requires specific ventilation. A delayed inspection adds another month of rent with 0 sales. Then come deposits, architects, legal work, insurance, initial inventory, signage, training, and local permits. Food businesses are generally licensed and inspected through state or local authorities, so the exact requirements vary by city. Finally, you need working capital. 3 months of cash is the minimum responsible target. 6 months is safer. The cheap version of this business is often cheap because it excludes the money required to survive the opening. Once operating, the revenue engine is simple. Transactions per day multiplied by average ticket. Imagine 230 purchases a day at an average ticket of $8.50. That produces about $1,955 daily, or roughly $58,500 in a 30-day month. The average ticket matters more than owners expect. A plain coffee may sell for around $3.50. A latte may be around $5.55. Neither supports an expensive room as well as a $9 order containing a drink and a pastry. That is why food, alternative milk, extra espresso shots, seasonal drinks, retail beans, and merchandise exist. The pastry is not decoration. It raises revenue without requiring another customer to enter the shop. Customer acquisition is local and messy. If a $1,500 opening campaign produces 500 tracked first-time buyers, your initial acquisition cost is $3. That only works if enough return without another discount. Consider one $6 latte. The espresso, milk, syrup, cup, lid, and expected waste might cost around $1.50, depending on quality and location. The card fee can take another 30 cents. Before labor and rent, perhaps $4.20 remains. That sounds exceptional. It is also the most misleading number in the business. A barista still had to open the shop, calibrate the grinder, steam the milk, clean the station, restock the refrigerator, and close at night. Some of those costs exist whether you sell 20 lattes or 200. High product margin does not equal high company margin. Labor usually becomes the largest expense. The National Restaurant Association found that wages and benefits consumed a median 31.7% of sales for limited service restaurants in 2024. Coffee shops can sometimes operate below that with tight menus and owner labor, but a realistic target is roughly 30 to 35%. At $58,500 of monthly revenue, 34% labor is nearly $19,900. That includes payroll taxes, workers' compensation, training time, sick days, overtime mistakes, and ideally a market rate wage for the owner's management work. If you exclude your own labor, you can make an ordinary job look like an extraordinary investment. Ingredients and packaging might consume another 27 to 31%. Food raises the ticket, but it also creates spoilage. Unsold muffins at closing are not inventory, they are a loss. Occupancy can take 8 to 12% in a reasonable location, and much more in a bad lease. Card processing on a small ticket is painful because a standard in-person fee can be 2.6% plus 15 cents. On a $6 sale, that structure costs more than 5%. Then you still have utilities, insurance, cleaning, pest control, software, repairs, marketing, accounting, music licensing, linen service, broken glassware, refunds, theft, and the slow depreciation of every machine you bought. Across the broader restaurant industry, the old rule of thumb was brutal. About 1/3 of sales went to food, 1/3 to labor, 29% to everything else, and only around 5% remained as pre-tax profit. By 2026, the National Restaurant Association estimated that total restaurant expenses had risen 36% from 2019, and 42% of operators said their restaurant was not profitable in 2025. A well-run, beverage-heavy cafe can outperform the typical restaurant. It can also look busy every morning and still lose money. The hidden trap is capacity tied to one location. Your rent does not care whether it rains. Your loan payment does not shrink during summer vacation. Your opening shift must exist before the rush arrives. Yet, most demand may be concentrated into two short windows, the morning commute and lunch. You cannot store an empty Tuesday at 2 p.m. and sell it on Saturday. Once that hour passes, the capacity disappears forever. This creates operating leverage. When sales rise, fixed costs barely move, so additional transactions become highly profitable. When sales fall 15%, the same mechanism runs backward. Revenue vanishes faster than payroll, rent, management, and debt can be reduced. Location mistakes are especially dangerous because they are locked inside a multi-year lease. A beautiful shop on the wrong side of a commuter route can fail. So can a popular shop whose landlord raises rent, whose largest nearby office moves, or whose street loses parking during construction. Even Starbucks learned this at enormous scale. By 2008, Starbucks had spent years expanding aggressively. New locations increased convenience and market coverage, but expansion also created weaker sites, cannibalized existing stores, and added lease obligations that remained even when traffic softened. When the economy weakened and U.S. customer traffic declined, the company announced plans to close about 600 underperforming company-operated stores. The closures were not free. Starbucks recorded $266.9 million of restructuring charges in fiscal year 2008. For the U.S., store closures already acted on that year, the company recorded $169.6 million of asset impairments, $36.6 million in lease exit costs, and $3.1 million in severance. Its consolidated operating margin fell from 11.2% in 2007 to 4.9% in 2008, although restructuring was only part of that decline. The lesson is not that coffee demand disappeared. Starbucks remained a powerful brand selling a popular product. The lesson is that a profitable concept can be duplicated into unprofitable locations. Each store is a separate bet on traffic, rent, labor, and local habits. A local owner has less data, less bargaining power, less cash, and no portfolio of strong stores to absorb one bad site. The lease you sign before opening may matter more than every drink you create afterward. So what could a realistic owner model look like? Assume the shop costs $240,000 to open. You invest $90,000 and borrow $150,000 at an illustrative interest rate near 10.75% over 10 years. The loan payment is about $2,040 a month. That rate is plausible in a market where the bank prime rate was 6.75% in July 2026, and SBA-backed variable loans can price several percentage points above their base rate. The shop reaches 230 daily transactions at an $8.50 average ticket, producing $58,500 monthly. Ingredients, packaging, and waste take 29%, or about $17,000. Labor takes 34%, or $19,900, including a $4,000 monthly wage for the owner-manager. Occupancy takes 10%, or $5,850. Processing, utilities, repairs, insurance, marketing, software, cleaning, and administration take another 19%, or roughly $11,100. That leaves about $4,700 before debt service. After the loan payment, pre-tax business profit is approximately $2,600 a month, or $31,000 annually. The owner receives roughly $48,000 in wages plus that profit, for total pre-tax compensation near $79,000. That annual profit equals about 13% of the full $240,000 project cost, and the owner's original equity could theoretically be recovered from profit in just under 3 years. Realistically, taxes, reinvestment, equipment replacement, and weak opening months extend that period. Now reduce sales by 15%. Revenue falls to about $49,700. Product costs fall with volume, but rent does not. Labor can be trimmed, but not by 15% without hurting service. Other expenses decline only slightly. The $2,600 monthly profit disappears. After debt service, the shop moves close to break even or into a small loss. The owner can preserve cash by cutting personal wages, which means the business survives by paying its investor less for working more. That is the real risk, not that nobody buys coffee, that slightly fewer people buy it than the lease requires. A local coffee shop can be a good business for an experienced operator with a strong site, disciplined menu, fast service, favorable lease, and enough capital to survive a slow ramp. It becomes better when the owner controls the property, has an existing audience, roasts wholesale, supplies offices, or can spread management across multiple locations. It is a poor passive investment. It is also dangerous for someone who loves cafe culture but has never scheduled hourly workers, negotiated construction, measured traffic by daypart, or managed food waste. The fantasy is a beautiful room where inexpensive beans become premium drinks. The reality is a high-touch retail operation where the coffee may carry a 70% product margin while the owner keeps 5%. You do not win by making the most impressive latte. You win by making the rent disappear one repeat customer at a time.